so-called flying saucers.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. It's rotating.
Welcome to Kill the Stigma. So first I want to welcome all the new subscribers. Thank you, Pavel. He gave me a shout out. Great guy. And sorry I haven't been posting much content. As you see, I live in the state of Minnesota and it's been kind of chaotic here. And it's kind of hard to focus on UFOs when you got a bunch of stuff going on. So my bad, but I do have an interview coming up with Stephen Bassett. I already recorded it. Now I just got to drop it, edit it out. That'll be coming out in a few days, and hopefully with another big name as well. But that one's not 100% sure yet. So I won't say the name yet. But let's talk about UAP secrecy. I was listening to Eric Davis talk to Peter Skafish. And I really want to understand where the legacy program is and who's in charge. Who's in charge of this? Because this is probably the biggest secret, right, in history. And somehow these people got the power to say no to the director of the CIA or to Secretary of Defense, to the President of the United States. And it's like, what? Like, it's interesting. But the question is, what about now? Because, yeah, you could do that back in the day when there was, like, no attention on this topic. But now, there's attention on this topic a lot. In fact, we've literally shot at UFOs. Whether accidental or on purpose, I do not know. But we've literally shot at UFOs, according to the government, in public. All right? We said clearly in February of 2023, when we shot a Chinese balloon, we called the next ones objects for a reason. And they said they could not identify them. And they went to talk about UAP. And then they said that they're going to make this group the UAP interagency group. And that's going to remain classified. The president took freaking days. So the reason I'm bringing that out, because what about that situation? Does that qualify a need to know, since it's out there, it was all over the news? Or what about the mystery drone flap? That was also all over the news. What about then? I mean, one last point before I show these two examples of what happens when not only our elected officials don't have any to know, but when the people don't have any to know. This is what happens. Just two examples. And when will the next one be? Because it seems like these flaps are random, but they are increasing with frequency. You just don't know when they're coming. And it's almost kind of sad to see. It is sad, actually, to see people so clueless, journalists in the White House briefing, when the press secretary briefs them, they're just so clueless because they never thought this topic of UFOs was serious. And you're just seeing this and you're like, man, it's sad. It's sad. It's so sad. But this is slowly changing, gentlemen. It is slowly changing, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you. So let's just give 2 examples of what happens and how people react.
Mysterious drones over New Jersey?
The nationwide sightings of mysterious drones.
Weeks of mysterious drone sightings.
You're telling me we don't know what the hell these drones are in New Jersey are?
That's right. They're saying no threat, but how the hell do they know? They don't know anything. They don't know what it is. They don't know where it come from.
Tip of the iceberg would be a gross understatement for that headline. More like tip of a sunken continent.
No, that ain't no plane, yo.
What the fuck is that, bro?
People in New York and New Jersey see drones the size of an SUV over their house every night and think that that doesn't make any sense.
Certainly I understand why people would be looking at this and being concerned about it. We're concerned about it too.
The U.S. Air Force says they're drones. Don't you fucking believe it? The U.S. Air Force lies.
There was a drone just hanging out. I put my drone up in the air and went towards it. Not 3 minutes into the flight, drone started going down, dead.
These are fully charged batteries.
What's going on here isn't new, and these aren't all drones.
You see it? You see how it goes?
And they're not just over New Jersey. They're all over the world.
There were several mystery drone flights over our nuclear testing range.
Just take a look at all of the military sites all over the world that these drones have visited. This is the continuation of a story that's been unraveling since the dawn of the atomic age.
Based off of
first, it defies reason that you would have zero idea what these 3 objects were, since the fighter jets themselves took video of their sorties. Will you release the cockpit videos from those missions?
I'd have to refer you to DOD on that, James, in terms of releasing the imagery. I never said we had zero idea. I said we don't know what they are, and so did the president. The president also told you that the intelligence community's leading explanations at this point are that they were a benign purpose, probably commercial, recreation, or scientific research. But we may not be able to go to 100% certainty on that unless or until we can get to the debris and analyze it. And as I said earlier, that task alone is going to be very difficult. And I can't predict with certainty that we're actually going to be able to get recover the debris. But we never said we had no idea. We can't prove definitively. The intelligence community has helped us try to do some analysis on this, and that's their leading explanation.
So you have tried to portray this entire sequence of events as one in which the commander-in-chief demonstrated good judgment at the right time and did the right things. The president's critics obviously see it differently. And what they depict is a commander-in-chief who, according to the Washington Post reporting, was able to track this Chinese spy balloon from the inception of its mission off of Hainan Island all the way to U.S. airspace and across the country. And eventually that was shot down after the Chinese had had a good look at whatever they wanted to see with that balloon. And who then presided over a series of missions in which millions and millions of dollars were spent and missiles were fired at objects that you now concede most likely were benign in nature. And that suggests a commander-in-chief who overreacted after allowing the Chinese spy balloon to do what it did, and then went trigger-happy on a bunch of kites and balloons that had no military threat to them. What do you say to that depiction of events?
I've already reacted to that exact criticism in the first question of the briefing. I've already reacted to it. No Americans in the air were hurt. No Americans on the air in the ground were hurt. James, no significant surveillance achieved by the Chinese spy balloon. And now we have an opportunity to learn even more about this program, a program that we started to really study in earnest when we came into office. No apologies here. You make the best decisions you can with the information you have and at the recommendation of the leaders in the Defense Department who are going to have to execute on that mission. The president did exactly that. He put the safety and security of the American people first, and he will never apologize for that.
Knowing everything you know now, knowing everything he knows now, would he take the exact same steps and shoot off these expensive missiles at these benign objects?
We're going to put some more policy parameters in place, James, to govern the way we handle these going forward. You make the best decisions you can with the information you have at the recommendation of military leaders.
Do you see how bad that is? That is horrible, horrible, horrible. I mean, that's embarrassing, and John Kirby's like, well, the information you have, you make the best decisions. In other words, what I think he's saying is the president at that point didn't have a need to know. He had no information. But my question is, again, what about now? All right. Now let's go to Holloman Air Force Base, 1964. And we're going to go into Eric Davis and George Bush and discussions on Need to Know. Go 1964, Holloman Air Force Base. Now, Dan Farah and Joe Rogan said there was two cases, two incidents where the UFOs landed and made contact with the Legacy program. He only mentioned the Holloman Air Force Base. The other one I suspect is the 1954 Eisenhower, whatever.
Without naming any names, is there anything that you couldn't talk about in the film that you could tell us? Without like quoting anybody or pinning it on anybody?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff I learned off the record. Hopefully it all comes out and people can legally talk about it at some point. But
can you talk about it without?
I know there's been multiple contact events, like straight up, straight up contact events. One of them is revealed in the film actually, but there are more. There was this. Several of the people in my film talk about an event that happened at Holloman Air Force Base where two non-human crafts approached the base. One landed. Beings walked out and interacted with Air Force officials and CIA officials. And a couple people go on the record talking about that in the film. But there have been other events, I've been told.
I don't know. But I think that's why he didn't want to go there, because it's too much. And you know how they make these documentaries, like, it's too much to handle for the new people, so... And a part of me kind of gets that, but it's still like, man, we're all adults here, you know? But I do understand the part where you're like, that's too much. I'm out. This is obviously BS. So I get that, but I'm pretty sure that's the other one he was talking about. And in fact, that's what the secrecy comes down to, allegedly, by people who are, I consider, legit whistleblowers, like Matthew Brown, David Rush. It's apparently a PEAD, Presidential Emergency Action Document from the 50s, and apparently part of the deal was no disclosure. But I don't know. I don't know if that's true. But here they're going to talk about the Holloman Air Force landing. What were they doing? Did they have to use the restroom? Did they need some supply? I don't know. What did they talk about? Allegedly, George Bush wasn't allowed to know. They didn't tell him. You do not have a need to know. Dude, I don't know how I can handle that information. You know, they did the same thing to Chris Miller, who was the acting Secretary of Defense for a few months, but still acting Secretary of Defense. And imagine if you're president and they tell you that. Boy, oh boy. Anyways, let's see what Eric Davis has to say about the Holloman Air Force Base and about his conversation with George Bush, which has been written about, and also in Jack Valet, Forbidden Science 5, the journals. You guys have to read that if you haven't. And apparently this is true, and I believe Eric Davis on this aspect. When it comes to reverse engineering, technology, and progress we've made, I don't believe him at all. He says nothing. But he even, like I said, he admits it here, that he wouldn't go there. So, anyway, let's see.
And so they got called by the traffic control tower to turn right back around, get to the runway ASAP. There's going to be 3 craft coming in of unknown origin, and start filming it. So that's what they did. They hovered somewhere nearby the runway, and they saw the 3 craft come in, and one of the 3 craft landed. The other 2 craft took off, and they filmed somebody coming off that craft and going to meet the aforementioned uniformed Air Force and civilian CIA personnel. And that was described to be, and Bush confirmed this. So Bush said his liaison officer from the Pentagon told him this in detail. So he confirmed all of what I just said. The NIH being looked Nordic, like Northern Europe, big tall guy, white. He had some kind of a metal fabric one-piece suit on. He had an apparatus over his face. His face looked humanoid, and they thought that might have been a breathing apparatus because probably he couldn't breathe our air. And then he had an object in his hand that looked like a staff. They were speculating that was a translator. You couldn't see him talking, but maybe it was telepathic, and the translator turned it into electronic voices. Who knows? This is just speculation. And this is what Bush was told, but Bush was told that it was a matter of fact. And the problem is Bush really got heavily interested in this, and he wanted to know more. And he asked for the files, the records, and to see the film. And the liaison officer told him, "I'm sorry, Mr. Director, but you don't have access to that information. You can get access to that information if something happens with the CIA such that this topic comes up, and you need to take a specific action that requires a presidential authority. Then what you'll need to do is call the president's national security advisor. He is the point of contact for everything UAP in the White House. So his job is to connect you up with the president, to arrange for you to give a briefing so that you could tell the president what the issue is, and that you'll need the president's official decision so that you can carry out an action in response to whatever the UFO incident is." That's what Bush told me he was told by the liaison officer.
So Eric, I'm gonna jump in. I've been just listening to this, and probably people listening are wondering why I'm not reacting, because of course this is completely astonishing, right? If you've never heard this before. So I want to ask you some follow-up questions about this. One question is, what did Bush say to you? Let's presume I presume that you're telling me the truth, and I would like people listening to presume that. You've illustrated so far that you're a reliable witness in the sense that you present an abundance of details when you're talking about a situation or a conversation, a interaction, a timeline. So we have a lot of contextual information, enough that would give us a sense that we can trust you. So let's presume this conversation happened. What did Bush say about the fact that he discovers as a new CIA director that he wouldn't have access to this information?
That's not uncommon. That's not uncommon. The White House runs the corral. So when the cattle are told, you can get information, then the cattle will get the information. But he was told he's one of the cattle, and they decide that in this particular instance, the liaison officer made a mistake by assuming that he had already been read in on the Holloman landing film when he wasn't, because that's what he was leading off with, was crash retrieval, alien contact with the government, and that kind of thing. And then he realizes, oh my gosh, Bush is acting, Bush told me he was really puzzled because he didn't know what the guy was talking about. And so they finally figured out that that the guy assumed that Bush had been briefed on this subject, and Bush said, no, I have not been briefed. And so the liaison officer's wrapping that up by just giving him the overall gist of what happened at that event. And then Bush had requested specific details. He wanted to actually see the evidence. And that's when he was told by the liaison officer, you cannot have access to that as evidence. You have to go through the National Security Advisor to get access to that evidence. But before that happens, somebody in your organization who, the CIA, that would be Bush's organization, somebody who holds that portfolio or owns it, will be instructed to give Bush a full briefing on everything before Bush can go to the president to talk about whatever the UFO or / UAP event occurred that requires him to go see a president. So then you just need to go through a higher threshold of need to know. And that's what the liaison officer was telling Bush. And that's how Bush told me. He just said for all intents and purposes. There's a higher threshold of need to know for you to get the specific details down to the last sheet of paper and photograph or films. And you haven't met that threshold yet. When that threshold occurs, that's when you get briefed. And permission will be given for you to get briefed. And then you go see the president to talk about whatever the big issue is that you've got. But it's got to be relevant to this alien contact situation.
So Peter Skafish, he's really good at interrupting and asking questions. Sometimes good, sometimes it's a little bit annoying when he interrupts. Sometimes the point is, why didn't he ask about now? This is what I'm a little bit frustrated, because now the situation is different. Now we have flaps, we've shot at UFOs, allegedly, according to the White House, actually. And then this was in 2023, and I showed both examples. I started with the drones, which were later in 2024, especially the big flap. It actually started before, but in 2023, February, after that balloon, we shot at UAP. I did not say that. I don't know that's true. That's what the White House said. So my thing is, what about now? How come the president and the people, because you see all these journalists, all the media, clueless, confused, and we gotta need to know. We have the right to know, because I guarantee another flap will come. And, you know, at some point, we need more information. We need to know, should we be concerned? The Jersey flap, the whole thing, that was creepy as hell, because you see these weird, huge car-sized drones literally on top of a roof, like. And a lot of you that's seen this channel know that I saw these things, and I'm in Minnesota, right? So I know they were worldwide, and that's a whole nother conversation, because the UFO phenomena has many different categories, all right? It has orbs, it has saucers, triangles, crop circles, you name it. It does different things. It's got the whole thing with the cattles. It's got the experimentation with the, they take people. It's got the reconnaissance over military, the whole nuclear connection. It does different things, okay? So, is the drone thing kind of like a new thing? I don't know. But my point is, these two recent situations is enough to not only give the president and the people in charge need to know, but us. Because it's going to happen again. And now we have things like the Age of Disclosure. We got James Fox, the phenomena, moment of contact. The information's out there. It's out there. Okay, so like the cover up, you can't keep the lid on a cover up how you used to do it back in the day, making people think they were stupid and ridiculous. And in fact, where are the debunkers? Back in the day, you used to see them going on the news and all the time. Where's Bill the Science Guy? He's still alive. Anyway, that's all I got.